Happy time zone, friends. This is Kitty from Kitty Crosses Animals, and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. We are on the island of Cedar Grove today, my Friendsgiving Island, part of a collaborative design challenge hosted by the one and only Kaylee Games. So if you haven't checked those out yet, I'm going to leave the prompts and the rules down in the description. But we're going to go ahead and jump into a new video today. And today we're going to be doing a natural terraforming video. So I plan on making a little viewing point that I'm going to be looking up at where I'm standing right now. But we have some cliffs to destroy and rebuild. So I'm going to show you guys how I terraform, and hopefully you can get some tips out of that. Alright, so you can see where I'm standing is pretty much the only cliff left on the island. And I'm going to break it all down and build it right back up for you guys, just so I can show you kind of how I make my terraforming look a little more natural on my islands. So I'm going to go ahead and get destroying those, and you guys just hang out and enjoy the music. Okay, friends, so as you can see, we have completely flattened the back of the island. And now, I don't remember if I said this already, but the main thing that you want to consider when doing a build like this is that you're going to need twice as much room as you think you're going to need, just so you can kind of like shape everything down and make sure that there's enough room for a third level cliff if you want to use that, and enough room to put water on that third level cliff. So just keep in mind, just have a big area that you are able to use. And over here across the river is our lookout point. So this is where we are going to be viewing the build from. It's right by our little pumpkin patch here. And this is going to be our main viewpoint. So I'm gonna go ahead and start rebuilding up these cliffs. We're gonna get our cliff construction tool out here. And I'm gonna start with the main face of our cliff, which we want to meet. We want this waterfall to meet the stream. So I'm gonna have a waterfall here. In order to do that, I'm gonna need quite a bit of cliff face just to match up with it. But then when it comes to keeping your terraforming natural, one of the biggest things you want to consider is that you don't want to have too many spaces going in the same direction so it looks kind of like a wall. So I like to change direction of my cliff every few tiles, really. Let me see if I can get out of here. I want to keep that tile rounded. I can. So I'm going to change the direction that my cliff is headed every, 2 to 4 tiles. So like right here, we have 1, 2, 3, and then I'm actually gonna make it so it starts here for the next cliff. And then I'm gonna make a few tiles here. We'll do 1, 2, 3. Maybe even 4 before I start heading back in another direction. So the main, I keep saying the main. There we go. What you're gonna be doing really is instead of building a straight up rectangle for your build, you're gonna be building a polygon, which is just a shape with many sides. And then we're gonna fill this in right here. So we have it headed backwards now, and then we're gonna switch direction of the cliff again. Wrong place once again. Still the wrong place. Goodness, what a pain in the butt. So this is kind of what we're working with on this side as the front. And I'm gonna go over here and try to do this other side over here. I don't want it to be symmetrical really. So I'm just gonna, not really remember what I did on the other side and just go ahead and start filling this in here. Sure, we'll keep that block. All right, and then we're gonna, kind of the same idea here is we're gonna do, 3 to 4 squares before we start switching the tile that the cliff is taking up. And we're gonna, yeah, sure, that one works there. And then we'll put this one here. And then, so you guys are probably thinking, what about the edges? We're not gonna worry about the edges. We're gonna keep them squared off until after we build the cliff level on top of it so we can move around because it makes it really hard to move around the cliff if you already rounded off the level that you're trying to walk on. So we're not going to worry about rounding these off now. We are just going to worry about where where the cliff is headed and what the view kind of looks like. So we're gonna go ahead and head back to our viewing point so we can see what kind of room it's gonna be taking up. Guess it'll be from here. Yeah, I kind of like that. Maybe we need to go a little bit further over on the left-hand side, but it looks like our right-hand side is good. So we can start filling that in. But let me just work a little bit on the left-hand side again. In construction. See if I can do this without messing it up. Not bad. Actually, I think I kind of want this one to come forward from here. Yeah, just like that. And then around, and that should be enough just to take up the view all the way of our viewing point. Because we want to make sure that the build is big enough to have the entire view covered with the cliffside, which it is. So now that we have the front of our cliff established, I'm gonna go ahead and just fill in the back area, and I will bring you guys back whenever I need to show you something new. So enjoy the speed build and the music. Okay, so that little trick I did there, how do I explain it? Okay, I just needed to be able to round the cliffs off where the water is, the river on the first level. So I just rounded that corner off because I know that I'm not going to put water there in the future. So I just did that before I add the next level, so I could actually get back down to it. Check out our progress here. See how our cliff is looking on our map. Okay, so it's a lot smaller than I would like for it to be right now. I've already been terraforming for about 20 minutes now, so I'm a little discouraged with how much space I've taken up already, because I know that I need a lot more space. But I did want to show you all the different sides that my shape has. So it's not just a rectangle. Imagine it's a bunch of different rectangles that are all kind of laying on top of each other. And that's the shape that I'm going for when it comes to the cliff. And I'm not like planning the shape out. I'm just randomly switching directions every few tiles, going back and forth with, forward, backward, left to right, and, just kind of like feeling it out. And yeah, those are my biggest tips. So I'm going to go ahead and keep going and fill up the rest of these tiles. And then we can go ahead and start working on the third level cliff and then our water. So what I'm doing here is I am finishing the outline of the cliff before I go ahead and start filling it in. So again, I'm doing that forward and backward, left to right, skipping a few tiles and switching the direction every few tiles I go. 20 minutes more later, and we finally have finished our cliff, or where we want our viewing point to be. If you're not doing a third level cliff, now would be the time to go ahead and round out all the edges of your cliffside, which I'll show you. Oh, red is here. Huh, all right. So if you're not doing a third level cliff, you can go ahead and round out your edges now. So pretty much anywhere where it's pointy like this or like this, you're gonna hit your block and make it a half point, which I will get more into once I'm ready to round mine out, but we're not quite there yet. We're gonna go ahead and start building our third level cliff now. All right, before I start building the cliff, I wanted to see what kind of area I was working with. So where I'm standing is basically the exact middle of where the viewing point will be. You can't really see, but there's the water at the bottom. So the farthest over I'm going to be able to see is actually back over this way. And then all the way over to here. I wish I could build a cliff while I'm in the camera app, but I cannot. So go ahead and start the outline of the third level cliff about here. There we go. And then we will start to make the cliff face a little bit. One more. And then I need to start bringing it forward here. And then we want to leave enough room around here so we can not only walk, but also put some water terraforming. But we don't want to come too far over this way before we start bringing the cliff up towards the front, because this is a viewing area. And like I said, we want the cliffs to be a little bit close to the other cliff face so it's not too hazy when we look at it. So we're gonna keep building base and we're gonna go up towards the front. So that's pretty close. We can kind of pull this up like this. Back one like this. There we go. And then I'm gonna come up this way. Not but and I'm gonna get pretty close with these. That's about as close as I can. That one. And I do want to have room for like some water right here, so I'm gonna leave that just like that, and it's not gonna let us put anything there, so we're just go back from right here. And then we'll have to leave the one to two spaces so we can walk around. So sometimes it's easier if you actually do the whole outline of the cliff before you start filling it in. So let's look at the map really quick. Actually, let me move where I'm not going to be in the way of the map. So we're going to pull up the map again and check out what that cliff is looking like. All right, that's not terrible. And it's gonna look funny until we round the edges out. Once the edges get rounded out, that's when it's gonna really start to like take form. But right now, I kind of like how it's looking, so I'm just gonna go ahead and keep building that cliff up, and hope you guys stick along with me. So just like our first level, I am gonna start with the outline of our cliff face before I start to like go in and make any huge squares. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm following that rule of like every 2 to 4 tiles, I'm gonna switch direction and make this huge polygon that is just a super weird random shape. So here you can kind of see the final outline of our cliff coming together. Just going around that bottom cliff there, and now I can go ahead and fill it in. Okay, so 20 minutes later again, and we have the shape that we are going to be working with. So like I said, oops, I don't want that. Like I said, it's just a big old polygon. So we're gonna pull up that map again, and I'm gonna move so I'm not in the way of it. Let me pull that map up again and we can see what we're working with. So like I said, it's gonna be a pretty big build. So you can see that it takes up most of those 2 acres there. However, we can always trim it down a little bit, and I'm almost positive that I will be trimming it down a little bit. I mean, we'll see how the terraforming comes out, but I just wanted to show you guys like the approximate size that it is. Now, if you don't want to do any waterscaping around, now is your time to round out all of your corners. But I do want to do some waterscaping, so I'm going to keep my corners until I'm done with the waterscaping. However, let's go ahead and head up to our top level so we can start working on some waterfall. Now, this is going to be the center of the viewpoint where I'm standing right now. So I actually might make this a little bit bigger so I have more than just one square that the waterfall. Let me go ahead and do that. Annoying. I would have saved hundreds of hours in this game if it would just terraform where I wanted it to first. Cool, that's good. And then we're gonna add one more thing here so we can round that out. All right, that's better. That's where it's gonna actually. Yeah. Okay. Head back up to the layer. We're gonna pull out our handy dandy water shovel here and immediately hit the wrong square. And this is where our main. Oh my god. And I'm it. We're gonna pop this bad boy. Pop that bad boy. Pop it. We're gonna need it all in here as well. So let's go ahead. We're gonna cut that in half. That looks good. I like that. All right, and then we're gonna cut this tile in half. All right, so that's gonna be the main viewpoint. So let's go down and see what this looks like. Do our handy trick here. we can see a little bit higher up. All right, so that's going to be our main waterfall. Obviously, we still have a lot to do, but that is our main feature. Hi, Jojo. Right, back up the cliffside so we can go ahead and put more water in. Let's go down here. Where around this corner off. Yeah, we're just gonna leave that like that. All right. Now, I want this waterfall to kind of branch off into other waterfalls. I'm gonna take the waterscaping tool to chop this bad boy. And then we're gonna do like this diagonal line. I'm gonna chop kitty corner from it. Chop. That's where I wanted to chop. There we go. Can't chop that one apparently. And chop this one. Wait, I can't chop that one. Nope, that's unfortunate. Okay. So we'll keep that just like that. Unfortunately, you can't have diagonal waterfalls, which is so sweet. All right, that is nice. I like how that is looking so far. So now let's keep doing our waterscaping and not sit on the mush stool. Okay, we need to connect this water to the stream, so I'm gonna chop it here. Do a little diagonal again. And one more diagonal. All right, and then we will go ahead and chop these little squares. So I'm gonna actually stand here and chop this. And then I'm gonna stand here and chop this. And then that didn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, but I'm gonna chop this as well. Will it let me chop this block? No, it won't. That's okay, that looks fine. But I can chop this one. Yes, okay. That looks good so far to me. Let's go ahead and pull up the map and see what it looks like there. All right, so you can see, it just makes like this little kind of circle on the map so far. So we're gonna actually make like a little pond, I think, at the top. And I have some other waterscaping that I wanna do. I wanna connect in B5 where the river ends. I wanna connect it to the river in C4. Right by the pumpkin patch and right at the bottom of our new cliff we are working on right now. All right, let's turn this into a little pond of some sort. So we're gonna have to go straight back a little bit just because these cliffs are very narrow. Narrow here. This. Now, when I'm doing my waterscaping, I do the outline of it first, and then I chop away the middle. And I always look at the map while I'm doing it, just because every pixel makes such a big difference. Or every tile makes such a big difference. So every few tiles or so, I do open up the map just to see where my progress is coming along. And we're gonna just continue with this outline. And it's the same thing with the cliff edges. Every few tiles or so, you're gonna switch directions. And that's how you really get it to look like it's really natural, you know? Because in the game, they make everything so straight and so wide. You wanna vary the thickness of your streams and make them bend and wind. And you're gonna do that by changing directions of your terraforming every few tiles. I'm just gonna keep figuring out the outline of this pond here. It doesn't need to be huge, but I do want it to be like a feature on the map. I want you to be able to see it on the map. Okay, so we can meet up with this guy over here. telling you, hundreds of hours I would have saved in this game. All right, so now we have the outline of our pond. We're gonna go ahead and start chopping up the inside of it. Got the inside of our pond all gone. And now we're gonna round out our corners so it doesn't look so jagged and janky. That's not what I wanted. Put that again, thank you. This one, please. Great. All right, and then we're gonna chop this guy. And this one is only 2 squares, but that's okay. I'm gonna leave this bottom one a squared off tile, and then I'm gonna chop these 2 into half tiles so it makes it diagonal. Or not. I could just leave it like, no, I'm not, because I want to chop. Oh my gosh, seriously, this is like, I can't say I've never had such a miserable time terraforming, because I totally have, but oh my gosh, she's being so difficult today. Get this one. This one. And that one. This. So there's our pond. Let us look at that on the map again. So annoying that you have to like move away from what you're working just in order to see, you know, what you're working with, what you've done, to check your progress. Okay, I actually really like that. So let's go see what it looks like from our viewing point. Right, here is our viewing point. Up a little. Oh, I've gone up all the way. So I gotta do. All right, so this is what we're looking at for our viewing point right now. It's still not quite as good as I want it to be. There's some space on the right over there where I want to add a little bit more water. And then we can actually go ahead and start trimming down the excess cliffs that we have. So let's head over here. I'm gonna chop this middle one here and see what exactly we can do with this little stream. I can connect this to the pond. There we go. And then maybe chop this. Can I chop this? No, of course not. But I can chop. Nope. Like that. I don't love how that looks, honestly. It's gonna look different though once I actually like round the corners out. So let's give it a chance for now. And then we're gonna break this here. And we need to connect waterfall to stream. Shoot. Oh, this. All right, how is that looking from our viewpoint? That is a ton of water. Very 2020 core, if you're asking me. Especially if we move over to that side. I don't know if I want to add any, or maybe I'll add some on the left hand side over. Okay. Now, can I connect to this water? I can, but I need to do some cliffscaping. So now is when I'm going to start rounding out my edges. We rounded out those edges. I need to get rid of this tree. I need to put my flowers on the beach. Because it's getting to be that time where it's about time to decorate where the flowers are. Come on. Let's see what this looks like here now. Would you look at that? Now, I can't wait to do it before and after. So I'm definitely gonna snap a shot of that. But now that we have most of our waterscaping pretty much set, other than this little stream over here. I'm gonna round this corner out before I put any more water here, because if I don't, it's gonna drive me nuts. It's gotta be rounded there. Is it gonna let me chop this block? Yes, thank goodness. Okay. And then I'm gonna chop this block too. And this one. Feet. Alright. Now we'll make it go straight for just a little bit. And we'll start moving it diagonal. And we're just gonna keep it one tile wide here. So we're just gonna chop these into half tiles. Please stop jumping over. I just want to break the edges into half tiles. Not what I wanted. One second. But then we'll break. So it kind of like meanders a little bit. Yeah, I like that. And then we'll break the and out one that I can round these. All right. I'm gonna open up that map again and see what it's looking like with those added. Oh man, I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but I actually really do like how it looks on the map. It almost looks like a ghost's face, so that's kind of creepy, but pretty cool for an island that's supposed to be like fall, almost Halloween. So I think we're gonna rock with that. Let's run back over to the lookout point and see how it is shaping up. Oh yeah, that is quite the waterfall scene, if you do ask me. Right. Yeah, that's gonna be a nice before. Okay, friends, so now that we kind of have our waterscaping in place, now we're gonna go around and we're gonna trim off most of this excess cliff. The reason that we make it so big is so that we have enough room to work in the first place, because you never know how big it's gonna need to be. So we just plan for it to take up a lot of space, and then we tear it down afterwards. Or at least that's what I do. I say we, but that's my advice. So let's start breaking down these extra cliffs and rounding out our edges so it can start to look a little more natural. I'm gonna break this down by 1 tile. There we go. And then, oh, I can't round that out. Never mind. I'm gonna break this edge and this edge. Come on. You guys, count how many times I hit the wrong block. Oh my gosh. Alright. Now, see how we don't have a pointy edge here, but it's still like it squared off angle? So when we have those, we're just gonna add another piece. Oh my gosh, another tally mark on the number of wrong squares hit. All right, we're just gonna add a piece here so that there is a point, and then we're gonna break that so that you still have a rounded off cliff here. You guys, I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm also ignoring this balloon. Don't get mad at me. I need to dig up these monies. Yeah, I need to dig up these monies. I need to dig up these bells so I can do what I just did. So when we have a concave angle like this where it's not a point sticking out, we're gonna fill it in with a point and then break it off. All right. Now looking at our map, I really don't think the cliff needs to come over this far, so I am gonna trim it back quite a bit. It's looking a little funny on the 3rd level though. It's like a really big straight line, so I think I'm gonna edit that cliff a little bit. And I'm gonna bring this out a little farther. So that I can work on that. So we have a concave edge here, so we're gonna add a piece and break it down. Same here. We have a concave angle, so add a piece, tear it down. But I do actually want to build up more on this because it's just a straight line. It looks a little funny to me. Well, I'm just gonna add a couple blocks here. Break that down. We can break this down. This doesn't bother me having that straight edge there. But that should look a little bit better on the map. Yeah, that does look a lot better on the map. It doesn't look like a straight line anymore. But now that we are, you know, up on this edge, we can keep breaking these down. So I'm gonna break this point down. This one I would add a piece, but I kind of like how it's squared off here. So it's not like a long diagonal. So I am gonna leave that one. And if I can hop over here, I will break this down. All right, sweet deal. These ones, oh, I can curve these ones. I always think that I can't curve these ones, but they can be curved for sure. All right, we're gonna leave this little piece concave. We're not gonna add a piece and tear it down because I don't like when the diagonal is like too diagonal. So I'm gonna leave it like that so it's not a straight diagonal, and so we have this little half piece that's in between that makes this kind of like wavy line instead. And we're just gonna keep breaking down our pointy edges or adding in pointy edges where we need to and breaking those down. Whoops. Might leave that one. Break this. This. And I'm actually gonna take away a lot of this side of cliff actually. I'm just gonna break the edges for now, and then I'll look at the map and see how much of it I can take away because there is a good bit that I don't need. I do want to still be able to decorate up here though. And, you know, plant some trees and make it pretty. So I don't want to take down too much of it. Just enough for it to, you know, just enough for me to have some room to plant some things behind the pond. Alright, we're gonna leave that one concave and break this. We're gonna break this one. Nice scooch. Nope, not scooch core. You guys. I'm so sick of hitting the wrong block. But I'm gonna add a point, I think. Not that it really matters, because there was already a pointy edge there, but... Here, we're gonna... Wait. Break it down. I feel like I'm not being, very descriptive in this video, but I hope that you guys are starting to kind of get the gist of what's going on, what I'm doing. All right, what do you think of our cliff that we have in the back? I do need to go finish terraforming the rest of the little corners here. So like I need to do, shoot, didn't want that. This to be, there we go. And this one. And we're gonna run around back here. This one, please. Can I hop? So I think I'm actually gonna take away a lot of this corner over here. Oh, okay, it's not as big as I thought it was. Okay, I am gonna leave that actually. Alright, so here's our map. This is kind of, I guess, the final shape that we are working with. And I want to see it from our viewpoint and see what it looks like. Get our final view of it. Friends, this is kind of the final form that we are working with here. Just a ton of waterfalls, tons of natural landscaping. I wanted to show you guys kind of how I do it, and hopefully this gave you some tips and tricks. And stay tuned in the next video, or, you know, hit that like and subscribe button so you can see what this looks like once it's finally decorated. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Bye.